It is the most wonderful time of the year, ladies and gentlemen. This is Weighing In. I'm David Mirikitani. Mark Ostrander and Grant Turner. We're brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. I feel my energy coming up, fellas. I feel it. I've been stressed. I'm putting together border brawl stuff, but brackets came out last night. If you have a significant other, they probably think you're doing bad things on your phone because 84 texts are coming in a minute on commentary on brackets, things like that. But it's awesome. Before we get to that, shout out NAIA Grandview. Congratulations to GT, Nick, the crew. Congratulations, GT.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Amazing tournament. Lots of highlights, tons of amazing moments. A wild and crazy NAIA national tournament. Multiple All-American, did not All-American. Reigning or NAIA national champion, did not place. Stuff like that. It was a great tournament, though. Really cool. Your
kid broke a kid's streak of like 90-something matches. And on the downside, you had a number one seed that semi-slid to 6. I mean, it's just a roller coaster for 2 days, right?
It's absurd. And, yeah, big shout-out to Boggy Boldma on his streak. It was the longest in NAIA wrestling history. Unfortunately or fortunately, it was snapped by the Grandview wrestler Shea Ruffridge in the semifinals on a last 6 seconds reversal. Epic match between those two. But credit to Boldma on his amazing streak, and then just pure class the entire time. Wrestled back, got third.
Yes, I was going to say, coming back and taking third. A lot of, we've all coached guys that if they lose, they're done. So, yeah, shout out to them. Women's NJCAA Indian Hills national champions. Shout out to Eliana Bomarito. She wrestled in Border Brawl, multiple-time Fargo champ. Shout out to them. The Women's Collegiate Nationals, North Central. Congratulations to them. NJCAA Nationals, Western Wyoming champions. Ladies and gentlemen, Grant Turner, who is not supposed to be the NJCAA historian of this show, correct. See, this is the GT, this is the difference. You call us a bunch of yahoos ahead of time, and I give you love, I give you your flowers on the air, but that's okay. Some of us just live on a higher plane. That's just how it is.
I mean, calling you guys yahoos, it was also like, this is coming from a place of uneducated, wrestling knowledge.
Don't walk it back. Don't just stay out there on the wing. Just wait till Tuesday when you got Shane for reinforcements. Just do that. Okay.
Hey, the JUCO mind trust that you guys are.
We know a few things, but you pointed out something that is very interesting. First of all, shout out to Art Castillo, one of the really good guys in the sport. Doesn't get a ton of blue chip recruits, just gets those kids to wrestle super hard. They battle. They fight. I talked to Josh Roden last summer. He'd left Clackamas, but he's like, man, those kids fight hard. Like, you got to bring your lunch pail. They win it pretty easily. No champs. So maybe the first time ever in JUCO history. Aaron Swayze, any of you guys that know JUCO history better than Mark Ostrander and I, which I think is maybe a few people, but Mark, you can't think of a time that there's never been a champ, right, for a JUCO team?
No, because it's always been kind of lopsided. Like back in the day, Garden City, they'd have 3 or 4 champs, and they kind of won it religiously. Lassen, California, for a few years, won it quite a few times. I know Clackamas has won it lately quite a bit, and they had guys that were champs. So I don't remember personally a team that won it without any champs, but I mean, it could have happened. I just don't remember. It's not like, Minnesota, we were talking about this earlier when they won D1s when it was in Iowa City. They had nobody in the finals. They were walking around. They'd already won it. And, that's nuts. So
we always joke about that as a coach, that if you had 10 guys take third, and NAIA is different, as 12 guys, but probably you'd win it with that too, because it's 13.5 points plus bonus. So if you have 10 thirds in D1s, that's 135. I mean, you'd have to be at 140 to 50 It'd be super disappointing because you're not wearing a suit on Saturday night. It would just, you probably would have an amazing Saturday afternoon, though. Like knowing it was locked up.
And for the fans out there that don't understand something, Grant Turner and his coach, the coaching staff at Grandview, put 11 guys in the semis of the national tournament. That is just mind-boggling. I mean, I still can't even wrap my head around how one program puts pretty much everybody on your team into the semis of a 60-some man bracket. It's just ungodly. It's just an amazing feat by what Grandview did this year. So
yeah, for sure. 11 out of 40, 27.5%. I had the abacus working there. So pretty impressive, right?
Got to give also, as the tournament was, and we go 11 in the semis and we put 6 in the finals. It was a very, I mean, once again, as you have 11 there, and one of those matches was an upset of the NAIA wrestling history, like guy going for his 4th title, consecutive streaks. In all respects, that's a match that maybe you don't count on as a coach. You're like, okay.
Listen, you got love for your guys, but if you're setting odds, he's the underdog. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. If you're doing Vegas, the odds. Yeah. So also within that, we had 6 in the finals. Life had 6 in the finals. Once again, got to give flowers to the team that was head and shoulders above the rest of the field. Basically, it was a 2-team race there at the end. And then, once again, crazy. They had 3 champs. We had 3 champs. Yeah. So it's very, very cool to see. And once again, if you ever get a chance to, on conference Saturday, watch the NAIA Wrestling Championships, it's always a great showcase of wrestling.
Omi Acosta, part of the Grandview coaching tree. I coached against him in junior college. He and I are buddies. We've done some work together at the Life U Open. 2 years ago, GT Grandview was there. We all got to hang out, and it's I'm Switzerland now, right? So it's different, but you guys are in the thick of it. But it's awesome, like watching you guys battle. And then Saturday night, everybody's eating chicken wings and having dinner together, and it's love. It's just real love. It's not like, sort of just Instagram love. It's like people genuinely care about, you want those guys to do as well as possible till they wrestle you. And that's how it should be. And they want the same for you. So, and shout out to Quentin Haynes. He's coaching there. He posted he's moving on. I'll let him announce that, but great. He came through my program and then your program and then their program. One of the great recruiting stories for me with him was from Willie Gadsden, and we'll save that for another day. But I loved Willie Gadsden, and so shout out to that. All right, rankings versus brackets. We could start at 184, but I think let's just start at 125. And Mark, this is how I know it's crazy. Normally, when GT sends me stuff, it's on text message. When it's slightly escalated, it's on Twitter. When it's crazy, it's an IG message. I was getting IG messages last night, like red alert. So,
hey, today may be one of the times that I get up on my soapbox, like Mark has done in the past, and just let the feelings out on this, because I feel a certain way about how some of these brackets have fell.
Mark and I are ready. I think I speak for Mark.
Oh my God.
We are ready. So, all right, let's share screen. We will do this. Let us start with the brackets. Okay. GT, no comments about how big the font is. This is for people watching at home on their screen. So no commentary.
Understood.
Okay. Not that it helps my eyes at all. All right. Spencer, we're going to just go by quarter brackets, and I'm going to lay it out and then give each of you guys like a couple minutes on each bracket, because we got to get through 10 brackets in like 5 minutes. Spencer's the 1, Barnett's the 8, Noto, who's 29-2, but just hasn't wrestled anybody. Like no signature wins, is the 8. Joey Prada's his first round matchup. Caleb Smith was the biggest shock to me as the 5. Killian Cardinal drops down to the 28. I believe they must know he's not going to wrestle. DeAugustina, who's an All-American, is the 12 and is 9-7. The Matt Ramos has Stanford and then the Peterson Trombley winner to get to the quarters. He looks like he has a fairly good path. Liam Cronin, really good year. He's the 3. Braxton Brown, certain in the next round. Patrick McKee is the 11. He'll wrestle Steve-O Poulin if the seeds hold. And then I looked at this. He would have Cronin, who he struggled with. And then if the seeds held on the back, he would have Barnett in the blood round. Brandon Kaler is the 7. Brandon Courtney is the 10. They just wrestled 2 weeks ago. Kaler won in overtime. Brett Unger is the 15. He has Ryan Miller, who I'm sure they've wrestled in the IWA. Pat Glory's the 2, starts out with Reese Whitcraft. If you go to the seeds, Caleb Smith was a 12. Okay. Steve-O Poulin was an 11. Those are probably the biggest. Let's see if we got trends here. All right. So, Marco, start us off. 125 thoughts and prayers.
Well, I think they got the top 4 correct, and that's kind of a big thing for the NCAA. It's rare that they even get the top 4 correct, in my opinion, but that I don't really have a problem with. I still think it's probably really heavy favor to seeing Spencer Lee and Patrick Glory in the finals. So, I mean, that's just kind of the way it looks like to me. I didn't see anything that stood out like, how in the heck did they do that in this weight?
You're not surprised Caleb Smith is the 5.
He's got only 2 losses, David, and I don't think
26 and 5.
Well, 26 and 5. Yeah, I haven't looked into it that close on every specific person. I just think there's a lot of good guys. I think the Big Ten actually being such a strong conference hurts itself because guys are losing to each other. For a perfect example is McKee and Barnett. You never know what's going to happen when those 2 wrestle. It's like they take turns. Hey, I won last time. It's your turn. That's kind of the way that match goes. So it's kind of really hard to put people in. I don't know if that hurt anybody having him at 5, David, to be honest with you.
Well, here are his losses. Jake Ferry, Kent State. Tanner Jordan, South Dakota State. Malik Heinzelman, Ohio State, who was hurt. Trevor Master Giovanni, who can't make weight anymore, and Steve-O Poulin. Now, he came back and beat Poulin. He's beaten Tremblay. He's beaten Ventresca. But he's beaten no one in the top 10 and has several non-top 30 losses. To me, that was shocking. Like, absolutely shocking that he's the 5. So, and Cardinal, 28, they must know his knee. I've heard all kinds of knee things. GT, initial reactions here.
Well, I mean, to Mark's point, I think that there is and this must be a formula thing that we may see later, is maybe the weight of having Steve-O Poulin as the Big 12 champion getting a bump. Maybe not so much on the weight, basically, of his whole season type situation. We're like, hey, okay, Big 12 champ maybe gets a little bit more weight. Yeah. But you have somebody like, and once again, this is where I'm going to go off the rails here, is DiAgostino from Northwestern as the 12. Like,
right.
He beat Matt Ramos in the quarterfinals 9-1 at the Big Ten championships, but then medically forfeited for 3rd and 4th to him. He also beat Eric Barnett at the Big Ten championships 3-2 in the consolation semifinals.
Yeah, he's a bad draw for somebody. And here's Poulin's losses. He lost to Caleb Smith. He also beat Caleb Smith. He lost to Ramos. He lost to Nick Provo. He lost to Yori Volk. And he lost to Case Mauger. Now, again, all these are off WrestleStat. So if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I don't think I'm wrong because this is like a really good website in terms of data. So I think we all know Steve-O from the little kid videos with the mohawk and everything else. But it's shocking. And I think, we'll get in. I don't think we're going to have time to get into picks. We'll do picks next week when we're all in Tulsa. So, and we'll do that podcast on Wednesday. We'll have to do it on Wednesday, boys. Just reminder. So,
yeah, but do you think D'Agostino being 9-7, they look at that number and say, we can't put him in the top 6. Not at 9-7. No,
He doesn't
7
have to be
losses.
6. He could be 8, 9, or 10, right?
Well, I mean, the thing that I question about that is like, okay, and once again, I don't have the wrestling stats data up on specifically him. I just thought that was some glaring one in this bracket that I wanted to like basically mention.
No,
it's
real, right?
I mean, if you look at whatever it is, number 1, Spencer Lee, number 3, Cronin, like there's losses to be had there, right? So how many they probably lost in the duel, probably lost it,
yes.
Big Tens. All of a sudden you have 2 losses to Cronin, 1 in the duel, 1 in the championships. Then you lose to Spencer Lee. There automatically 3 losses. There's other guys that are, I mean, once again, the weight class is loaded within the Big Ten. Matt Ramos, Eric Barnett. And once again, everybody deserves their flowers. But I'm like, if it's weighted on the conference championships, this guy just got 4th in the Big Tens. Now he's the 12 seed at the national tournament, placed behind 2 guys that he's beat previously at that tournament a week ago.
Yeah.
So it was just more of a observation rather than like actual nitty-gritty details in a seating meeting on why this occurred. I just thought it was a glaring one that I'm like, oh, that's a head scratcher, even at 9-7.
I wonder though, Grant, and I like your observation there, but I wonder if they put D'Agostino at 12 and look who he's going to wrestle. He's going to wrestle that quad right there of guys that you don't think probably should be ranked as high as they are. He's going to get somebody like
Caleb Smith.
Yeah, he's going to get Caleb Smith in the quarters. Are you going to be
shocked? No,
round of 16. Around of 16. Are you going to be shocked if he beats him?
Not necessarily, but once again, if we're going to be putting names to numbers, which this is why the brackets are the way that they are, not just like, hey, you're going to get into this quad.
Right.
I don't know. It's just something to, once again, for the people to basically digest. It's like, okay, well then Patrick McKee is the 11th seed. Once again, also has a lot of losses.
Right.
Also has some pretty good wins on the season.
Yep.
Now, once again, it's just something to observe, but he's in that same kind of quad situation where he's going up against the Big 12 champion and Steve-O. So, I mean, we're going to find out really soon if they both win against the Harvard wrestler and Virginia Tech. So,
couple things to point out here. Number 1, last year's not supposed to count, but it absolutely counts because where you start, there's inertia. Like if you win, like if Grant starts ranked above me and he wins 3-2 and I win 9-0, even if against the same guy, whatever criteria that had him above me, we're going to probably keep him there. Okay. Number 2 is theoretically in the formula, there's nothing bad about losing. Okay. There's nothing bad about losing. Number 3 is quality losses or quality wins rather are weighted. Number 4 is the coaches poll, man, it means so much in all of this. So I'm actually shocked because it feels like the Big Ten didn't get love and the SoCon did, and that's generally not the rule. Okay, 33. So as I'm scrolling, does it scroll on the screen, boys, or can you see it okay?
Yep.
RBY is 1. Bisco and Heilman are 16, 17. Mickey Philippi takes a tumble. He got Teskey first round. Aaron Nagao and Wyatt Henson. So Nagao, Philippi, potential round of 16. Nagao, RBY rematch. If anybody saw that match, RBY won the match, but he picked neutral. Nagao picked top, and Nagao rode him for 2 minutes and tried to basically choke the crap out of him. Kairini, one of us picked him as a preseason All-American non-top 12 or top 8. Jumps to the 5 after winning the ACC. He'll have, if the seeds hold, Ragusin in the round of 16. Chris Cannon. So these Northwestern guys did not get great seeds, but they've done it at nationals. Is the 13. He gets Michael McGee, who is not 20-10. He is 20-2. And that's absolutely terrible that for the nationals, they don't have this printed right. And I know it sort of doesn't matter because he got seeded correctly based on 2 losses and not 10, but that's not great. Vito is the 3. Mendez falls to the 14. They wrestled at that late duel, so they know each other. Connor McGonigal got an at-large. He's the 11. Sam Latona is the 6. Connor Brown is banged up. Kolioko is the 7. Lucas Bird fell to the 10. He's a guy that you kind of think can place based on his history. Dayton Fix is the 2. If the seeds hold, he'd have Redding and then Kolioko. GT, go ahead.
Okay, so once again, to Mark's point earlier, I do think that like the spread of talent in your traditional, like whatever it is, top 10 athletes, I think got spread out enough to like warrant like, hey, okay, we got this bracket pretty well spread out. Because I think that the heavy hitters are far enough away from each other and nothing happened at conference to, you know, basically set that on fire. I definitely think that the top 4 are should and have basically keep top 4. And then I think, you know, once again, getting a little bit of that love to, you know, the ACC champ, you know, Latona in there. You know, I think
he didn't win it. Kaiarini won it. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying like the ACC champ, Kaiarini, and then Latona going 5-6, like gave some weight to how they finished their basically regular season. I mean, first glance, I think this one was probably the most normal of the brackets that we'll basically go into. But I mean, I don't really have any issues with how this basically played out.
Yeah. Marco.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way the tournament, you know, because I'm putting fantasy grade contest in my head too when I'm looking at these, obviously. But I like some of the guys that are in here. You know, I like the 14 for Mendez. I think he's in a good spot. I think that's probably right around where he should be. I like Bird at 10. I think he'll be an All-American. So, you know, there's just things I like about the bracket. And I think, you know, overall, I don't think they did a bad job at 120 or 133. I agree with Grant.
I agree with both you guys. The one thing I would say to add to this is, for me, the cutoff on All-Americans that would surprise me is Mendez. Anybody Mendez on up wouldn't shock me. So I think there's like 14 guys fighting for 8 spots. And realistically, I think the top 4, even they're within different tiers, but the top 4 is tier 1. And so I think then essentially you got 10 guys fighting for 4 spots. But if Zach Redding on down placed, I would be surprised. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but it would be surprising to me. And when I looked at the fantasy grade rankings, nothing's really out of line here. So, all right, 41. So this happened what we thought would happen. Real Woods got the 1. Mark and I talked about this off the air. We thought about quality wins and things like that. So he gets the 1. Coder Hans the 16 versus D'Amelio. Moses Schwartz, who did not have the best, he defaulted out to 6 as the 9. He wrestles he wrestles Swiderski first and then Alan Hart. Kevin Dresser had a great quote about Swiderski saying he's got more emotions than a 15-year-old girl, which if any of us have coached, had to make you chuckle. Ryan Jacks the 5. Parker Phileas is the 12. Carter Young, who's banged up, is the 13. He gets Berglund. Brock Hardy is the 4. Cole Matthews is the 3. Cale Happel is the 14. Clay Carlson is the 11. Bo Bartlett is the 6 with 2 losses. Vince Cornella, who I've been pretty high on all year, got a great seed. He's the 7. Lachlan McNeil from UNC, who's wrestled internationally for Canada, is the 10. Tom Crook is the 15. Andrew Alirez is the 2. I think, Mark, it's your turn to go. Actually, I think it's my turn to go first. So, Real Woods, we thought that would be safe. I don't know if anybody's beaten Real Woods to the finals, but Brock Hardy has wrestled him close. Alan Hart's an interesting matchup because Alan Hart doesn't shoot a lot and Real Woods doesn't shoot a lot. And Alan Hart is pretty good on top and bottom. And I think the formula, if you're going to beat Real Woods, is to get away or else get 2 takedowns and pick neutral. Ryan Jack, Brock Hardy would be a very interesting quarter if the seeds hold. Cole Matthews looks like a pretty manageable path to the semis. well, to the quarters. And then him and Bartlett, very interesting contrast in style. Cornella, McNeil, if those seeds held, is a really good young matchup. And Alirez has truly impressed me how much he's jumped this year. I coached against him a couple years ago. I know GT, you were there down in Raleigh at the age group world trials, and he was an absolute buzzsaw. It kind of felt like he leveled off a little bit. Now he's back to jumping levels. So, Mark, I think you're first here.
Well, you were first. You already went through it. So,
no, but of you guys.
Yeah, well, I think the seeds were pretty accurate. I don't think it really matters between 1 and 2, to be honest with you. They're separated. That's what needed to happen. Cole being a returning, the highest place winner from last year, is at the 3 seed. It wouldn't have surprised me to see Hardy at 3, but Hardy losing to the Arizona State true freshman probably hurt his chances of
conference champ and winning percentage. Matthews over Hardy.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I mean, I like the bracket. I would say if I had to look at anybody's quarters, probably Real Woods got the toughest part of it, because there's some really good kids in that top, area. So, Schwartz has been on fire for a good part of the year. We already saw him wrestle Swiderski in the duel, and that was a 1-point match. And like you said, Alan Hart's, dangerous. So I think his top part of the bracket is really good. So,
yeah,
that's just kind of what I see on paper. I don't see, him not getting into the semis, to be honest with you, but I think he's going to have to wrestle really well to get there.
GT?
Yeah, I mean, I think after watching kind of the Big Tens really closely, I think that, the Brock Hardy Ryan Jack match is something that, as far as a quarterfinal, if that, basically seeds hold true and I get to see a 4-5 matchup, I'm very excited about that potential match. I really like where Cole Matthews is too, in the bracket. I think when he goes up against, once again, another quarterfinal with him and Bo Bartlett, that's a really, really good match. Once again, pretty spread out talent wise, I think, again, for the brackets. I don't know. Yep. I think that there's some other really good some talent in there in the kind of the mid-range numbers between the 12 and like 18s. That just could pop through, right? Just good decent seasons, good upsets, good matches.
Nothing too egregious.
Yeah, that kid, Kel Happel from UNI, David. Before the Big 12 tournament, I really thought he might win the Big 12s. He had beaten some really good kids this year. He had a phenomenal year and laid an egg at the Big 12s. I don't know if he was hurt, if it was a bad weight cut. I don't know, but he's a dangerous kid. He can wrestle.
You thought he was going to beat Alirez?
I thought he could go with Alirez.
Okay.
He's beaten some really good kids this year.
Just making sure. I think the most interesting thing in this weight is that Jake Berglund was a returning All-American and is now the 20. And what's really crazy is Minnesota's had some guys really come out of the woodwork and wrestle well, but at 41 and 57, those guys have gone in the complete opposite direction. So, all right, 49. Yanni D is the 1. Real Budo Arrington is the 16-17. John Miller is the 9. Max Murin is the 8. That's a very interesting matchup of styles in your round of 16. My adopted son, Panero Johnson, is the 5. He wrestles Doug Zaff, who's popped up on a bunch of people's losses. He's the 12 if the seeds hold. Shane Van Ness is the 13. Caleb Henson, I think, has been very quiet this year. He had the Sasso win, and that really helped him. He gets the 4. Kyle Parko is the 3. The match with Brock Muller that he won in overtime was gigantic for seeding in this tournament. Kellen March is the 14. Michael Block is fresh off a Big Ten final appearance, is the 11. He gets Brock Muller, who's the 6. Yaya is the 7. Jaden Abbas is the 10. Austin Gomez is the 15. Sammy Sasso is the 2. There's a lot of storylines here. I think, Mark, you're first. GT, who's first? It's not me. One of you guys go. Okay.
Yeah, I think second round, you're going to have some really, really good matchups. And usually at the national tournament, second round isn't, I mean, it's a good round, but it's not a great, great round. This year, it seems like there's going to be a lot of really good matches in that second round because I think the kids are just that much better wrestlers these days. So can Gomez get healthy enough to compete? I don't know. If he does, Sammy's not going to be real happy. That's a tough draw for second round match. Somebody that's beaten him this year.
He lost to him. Yeah, he lost him in the All-Star meet, which doesn't count. But I mean, if you're the 2 seed and you have 2 losses all year, and then you get one of the guys, it doesn't count as one of your 2 losses, but you get a guy you lost to. That's awful, right, Mark?
Yeah, and that's I think you can go up and down the lineup here on really good second round matches. So, I kind of partial to Max Murin, but he's going to have, Milner. Yeah, Milner second round, who he lost to 8-1 last year at the national tournament. That's a tough kid for him to wrestle because he's long, lanky, very quick, hard to score on, hard to finish on. That's a tough one from him. So I really like, though, David, your adopted son, Pinheiro Johnson, being at the number 5 seed. I think he's good enough to get out to the semis from that spot. I really do.
Yeah, I'll get my GT. Go ahead.
Okay. So
See,
I'm looking at the brackets. So I'm not looking at your guys' faces. So
are you going to make a stand here, Grant? Is this it?
This is one of them.
Okay.
This is one of the ones that I just feel like I don't understand. Like, I don't understand some of the matchups and like how they came to this conclusion, like, at all. So where I'm going to get on my soapbox here a little bit is, like, at some point in time through this podcast and the year, Jonathan Milner should have been ranked number 1 in the nation. At some point in time, we thought as a group that Pinheiro Johnson, based off of our criteria, could have been ranked number 1 in the nation.
Should have been, right?
Then we have, once again, in this little area right here, this 5 and 4 quad, we have another freshman in Shane Van Ness, who is shown to be very, very, very capable in the country. That is the 13th best guy. We have Doug Zaff, who has been a freestyle All-American and is a very, very, very talented wrestler in this particular quad. We have a world champion, Jared McLaren, in that quad, who has also been going to school for 7 to 8 years.
He's a provost.
He's
I
a
checked
provost.
it out. He's
100%.
a provost. Yeah.
I just don't understand, like, how we can get so much talent into such a small quad between an 8th year senior and just a multitude of talented freshmen. Caleb Henson, Shane Van Ness, Pinheiro Johnson, all monsters.
So just people who are not familiar with the work of Doug Zaff, he beat Kyle Parko at the Journeyman. Now, it was an injury win, but it's 4 minutes and 40 seconds in. I don't know the score, but it counts. He lost to Milner. He beat Caleb Henson in overtime. He lost to Max Murin in overtime. Lost to Gomez. He's beaten Verclaren. He lost 3-2 to Yaya. Beat Jaden Abbas. Lost 8-3 to Yanni. So he's the worst kind of guy to rank, just so people know this. The other thing that when I went through like 3 or 4 points at 125, here's the other thing. Here's how this is supposed to work. Like, if Grant is Spencer Lee, when you lose to Spencer Lee, that's not supposed to hurt you because everyone has lost to him. So, like, and if there's an assumption is even if I didn't wrestle him, I probably would have lost to him too. So, like, there's nothing in my body of work that's that different from Grant's. Like, if we're trying to decide, and they're like, well, Grant has one more loss. Like, it's Spencer Lee. That doesn't count. Now, some of this stuff was fairly linear, okay? Like, I mean, the head-to-heads were, Pinheiro beat split with Mahler, but won the second one. The Mahler Parco match is huge for seeding. Okay. I don't know that Parco at the 3, I feel like it's pretty manageable to the quarters, but when you get a guy you've wrestled in overtime, although I don't know who else he would wrestle that's better. I mean, Yaya's an overtime kind of match. I think Caleb Henson's a wild card, and people forget this, but Pinheiro took Yanni to overtime. So, listen, no one's betting against Yanni. I don't think. And even money, nobody's betting against Yanni. Okay, there's always odds that make sense, but this is going to be Caleb Henson's really good, true freshman. I think, Mark, you and I interviewed him at the event at Nationals last year in Michigan. So I think he was in that event. So, he's grown up quickly. I mean, everyone knew he was good. So this is a fascinating bracket. All right. 157. AOC, the real AOC, is number 1. JQ's Artelona is your 16-17. Shout out to my guy, Vinny Zurban, for getting a wild card. Will Luan, he will 1-point you to death, is the 9. Ed Scott, who hates 1-point matches, is the 8. Josh Humphrey, undefeated, not saying this is right or wrong, is the 5. Kendall Coleman, who I think won Vegas, is the 12. Chumbley's the 13. Frantic, 22-1, is 4. Peyton Robb is the 3. Mark's adopted son, Kobe Seabrick, is the 14. Saldati is the 11. Daniel Cardenas might have the quietest 17-1 I've seen this year, because I didn't even know he was 17-1. Or maybe he's 17-10 and they just assigned his losses to Michael McGee. Bryce Andonian is the 7. Caden Gefeller is the 10. Jacob Wright is the 15. Levi Haynes is the 2. Now, a couple things are pretty linear here. Levi Haynes beat Peyton Robb. Peyton Robb beat Jared Frantic in the first meet of the year. So if you're saying, how did you sort out the 3-1 loss guys? That's how that happened. I do think it's interesting. Josh Humphreys came in underneath all of them. GT, the floor is yours.
Whew. Okay. Now this is one that I.
Come on, Grant, spit it out.
Hey, undefeated on the year. Undefeated on the year.
Yep.
Josh Humphreys, number 5 in the country. Don't agree. Flat out, just don't agree with it. Jared Frantic, 22-1. I think he's probably right where he should be.
Well, yeah. I mean, actually down a slot if you put Humphreys, above him, right?
Well, and I'm just saying that, okay, so he wrestles his schedule. He doesn't run from anybody. He does what he's supposed to do. 16-0, and other guys have losses. I mean, maybe Frantic goes to 5. Peyton Robb goes to 4.
So just so people know this real quick, just to make your point, Josh Humphrey, here's his wrestle stat. He beat Gefeller 7-6. He beat Ed Scott 12-7. And he beat Artelona 6-4. Those are his top 30-something wins. So where he must have lost ground is a number of quality wins and RPI, because he wins on winning percentage and he wins on conference champion. Doesn't win. He ties those guys on conference champion. Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I think it's part of this, Oh, still there? Okay, sorry. I had Yeah. So on the bottom side, I don't know. Once again, talented freshmen are getting, I think, a very, very high seed because I think they deserve it. I'm not suggesting that there should be anything that limits somebody that has not had any previous accolades going into the tournament. So once again, I just want to put that out as a disclaimer. There's a lot of very, very high seeded freshmen at this tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, extremely high seeded freshmen. And it's I feel that they're getting the benefit of the doubt for maybe not extra baggage. And I don't even know if that's part of the ranking system or quality of losses or wrestling tougher competition. I don't know what it is, but I just feel like there's a lot more of these freshmen that are ranked in the top 5 at this tournament than I've seen in a very long time.
GT, the extra baggage thing is your dating system, not how they see the NCAA tournament. Okay. It's a different formula. Okay. The crazy hot curve. Okay.
Well, and which will then lead me into rain.
Look at Mark trying not to lose it.
Well, which will get me to 165, where like Shane Griffith with 3 losses on the year, one which was bad, which I'll get to at that point in time, because 65 is more my head is going to explode.
All right, let's let Mark get in here. 57. Go ahead.
All right, listen, Grant. I kind of agree with the young man from Lehigh. He showed up at Penn State to wrestle Levi Haynes, and they didn't put him on the mat. They put Bear Claw out there. So he was there to face one of the better kids in the country. I could see him being the number 2 seed. I really could. And I would not have had a problem with that. But I also can understand why Levi Haynes is the number 2, because he beat the previous number 1 ranked kid in the finals of the Big Ten tournament. So I think they got into a position where you have a returning national champ is now the number 1 seed, hasn't lost to anybody. You had the number 1, the kid that was ranked number 1 all year, got beat in the Big Tens. And then you have the guy that beat him in the Big Ten finals, who only has 1 loss. I can see why they did what they did, because they gave credit to that Big Ten win, because that was a big win over the number 1 ranked kid. You're not going to move the number 1 ranked kid, much further, because he's beaten everybody he's wrestled this year. Yeah. Maybe that's why he's at 5. I mean, I could definitely see him being at 4, but it's not going to make a difference. 4 and 5 are not going to make a difference. They're going to still wrestle each other. So I understand that doesn't look on paper, but quality of wins, I just don't think Lehigh has, he might have had the quality of wins if Penn State would have wrestled their starter at 57.
So just a couple things to point out there. Number one is that there were some controversial calls in that. I had 2 things. I forgot one. There's definitely a controversial call in that. Oh, I remember the controversial call 157 in the finals, whether or not Hardy had a takedown on the edge. And then the other thing is Franek lost to Brock Hardy in the very first duel of the year with North Dakota State actually beat Nebraska. He would have been the 2, I would guess, if he had won that match.
Yes.
So anyway, all right. David Carr is the 1. Ogunsanya is the 16. Shane Griffith is the 9 and wrestles Ogun again, which is the 8. Quincy Monday is the 5. Izzy Olenix, the 12. Facundo, 13. Julian Ramirez, after 2 wins over Monday, is the 4. That's interesting. They would hit in the quarters. Dean Hamidi is the 3. If you like offensive wrestling, you must be a fan of his. Peyton Hall's the 14. Cam Amin is the 11. Patrick Kennedy is the 6. They're certainly familiar with each other. Caliendo is the 7. Carson Karchla is the 10. Justin McCoy is the 15. Keegan O'Toole is the 2. I think I'm the 3rd, so every 3rd weight. I'll go first. I love Keegan O'Toole's draw. I mean, Carson Karchla wrestled him really tough, but I think he's been banged up all year. Feels like he has a very, very manageable draw, literally to the finals, because he wrestled Hamidi in the All-Star meet and pretty much smoked him. Kennedy Amin in the round of 16 is interesting to me. Ramirez, Quincy Monday, if the seed's held in the quarters, is absolutely fascinating. Shane Griffith, Olgin, or however you say his name, I feel like I just trust Shane Griffith at Nationals. I think he wins that match. And then if that holds, Shane Griffith, David Carr, I think David Carr is on a different level, but cannot be happy for David Carr that you get a guy who's taken 1st and 2nd at Nationals in the quarterfinals. GT, before your head explodes, go ahead.
I mean, I feel like the talent, once again, I think is spread out. So I'm not upset about like where everything else is. And once again, the showcase of, kind of the top 4 guys in top 5 or even top 6 are spread out, I think, evenly enough to like make sure that those seeds like were correct. I think that, once again, Shane Griffith with his loss to the gentleman from Oregon State, like basically basically kind of screwed him out of being on the bottom half of the bracket. Because I think that Shane Griffith probably should have been either the 6 or the 7 if he would have not lost that match. And once again, NCAA champion still in the bracket. Like, I think he carries a lot of weight because he is that good. And once again, only 3 losses on the season, all of which have been extremely close.
Along with 15 of his wins,
Right.
He's turned into Willowan this year,
It's very similar to, like, once again, if you've watched other guys that are like chiseling granite, it's tough matches like 3-2, 5-2, 5-4, 6-3, close matches all the time. Once again, there's nothing wrong with that wrestling style, but once again, if you live and die by having that close of a match, like, then you're going to wind up getting these type of seeds. Yeah. Which I think if the eye test, which we don't have, and which not as part of my dating scene, or the weight of
really? Whoa! The eye test is not part of it.
It is more in my non-podcast related experience, but at the tournament, Shane Griffith is a dog. Like, that guy can wrestle. Like, he's an 8-9 seed, and you're getting basically a Pac-12 final as an 8-9.
Yeah.
So, I think that there's, once again, weighted conference championships, weighted whatever it is. I just feel like a couple of losses here and there really determined how this bracket basically fell, with Ramirez and Monday, Griffith losing at the Pac-12s, because if he would have won that, I think that he would have been on the bottom, which would have been a better scenario for himself. And also, we got to see, like, maybe an O'Toole-Griffith rematch. That'd be cool very, very fun to watch.
Marco.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think the losses that he took why they wrestled the week before the conference tournament, I still don't figure that one out, but that's their scheduling. The kid, I don't know. I struggle with this a little bit too. Oregon State kid had 6 losses on the year. A few of them weren't very good. But it was earlier in the year, so he's wrestled a lot better since then, and I don't think they take that into effect.
It's not supposed to count.
I know, but I don't think they take that into effect, that it's what you're doing now. To me, I think that's a big part of it, and they're not doing it very well. I could definitely see the problem was here, Grant, is that you can't put Griffith ahead of him. He's lost to him 2 times in a row.
No,
and how high can he go? I don't think he's had the season like somebody at the number 6 seed for Iowa, Kennedy, got. His only losses are to David Carr and 2 to Hamidi from Wisconsin, who's had a really good Big Ten tournament. It's really hard to figure out where to put these guys. I think he was probably put where he needs to be, where he deserved to be. But I think he's better than that. But
so just, and for the sake of time, Oregon lost to the Army guy who's not even ranked 5-1, but then he ripped off. He won the Roadrunner Open, only lost 1 match at the Cliff Keen, which was to Ogun Sanya. But then he had a 4-match losing streak where he lost to Ogun Sanya, Facundo, David Carr, Julian Ramirez. Now, again, 2 of those losses don't hurt you. The other 2 do. He lost to Quincy Monday in overtime. I think the other thing just to look at here as we move to 74 is Quincy Monday is 20-something and 0 against the 22-0 and 0-2 against Julian Ramirez. So he's lost to Ramirez and he's lost to David Carr, and they're both on his side of the bracket.
Yep.
So that's not awesome if you're Quincy Monday. 174, Carter Sirachi's the 1, Washington Wolf 16-17, Edmund Ruth 9, Bailey O'Reilly 8. Ruth has lost to Bailey O'Reilly twice. Plott gets a huge bump for winning the Big 12, goes to the 5. Aaron Olmos is the 12. K. DeVos is the 13. Chris Foca, who's a really sneaky 24-1 with his only loss on a ride out to Starachi, is the 4. Mackay, whose only loss is the Labs, is the 3. Pasuik is the 14. Nelson Brands is the 11. Ethan Smith is the 6. Those guys know each other. Peyton Mako drops a couple spots. He probably would have been the 5 had he won the Big 12s. He's the 7. Rocky Jordan, the Ohio State transfer to Chat, is the 10. Demetrius Romero, another Provost, is the 15. Mikey Labs, whose only loss is Starachi, is the 2. I'll just set this real quick. Starachi beat Labs. Labs beat Mackay. Starachi beat Foca. I think there's actually an argument for Foca to be higher. He wrestled in the duel versus VTech, and Mackay didn't. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify, David, that was a year ago that he wrestled against Starachi Foca and lost on riding time.
You sure?
This year he lost to Mackay Lewis at the Vegas tournament.
Okay, my fault. Go ahead.
So that's kind of why he's at 4 and Lewis is at 3. I think they seeded this about as good as you can seed a weight. The only one I struggle with here, and David, you're not going to like this, is Dustin Plotz being at
No, I agree he's too high.
I think he should have been closer to 7 or 8 in the seeds.
But the problem with him being lower is Mako is sort of his cushion. Like he's got to stay above Mako. And
Mako's got 2 out of 3.
Well, he won the Big 12s too.
He beat him 2 out of 3. And
right.
I agree with you there.
He won the last one in a conference final.
Yep.
So like that's what really matters. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, besides that, I really thought the weight kind of turned out the way I thought it would be. I think your top 4 kind of stand out by themselves, and then everybody else, anything can happen there.
GT, anything you want to put in the suggestion box?
Nothing on this one, really.
Okay, we'll keep it moving.
Yep.
184. A young man who needs to get his shoes changed. Parker Keckheisen is the 1. Heller's the 16. Samuelson's the 17. Salazar, who's had some good wins this year, is the 9. Fine Silver's the 8. Marcus Coleman, the only person to beat Aaron Brooks this year, is the 5. Abe Assad is the 12. That was a late 1 takedown match in the duel. Lenny Pinto is the 13. Trey Munoz, with only 1 loss, is the 4. Aaron Brooks is the 3. So let me just do a public service announcement here. If you are in a fantasy contest and it is based on seeds and not rankings, it is no longer 10 against 10. It is now 9 against 9. Because if somebody doesn't take Aaron Brooks as the 3 seed, they should not be in the contest. All right, keeping it moving. Feldkamp is the 14. Gavin Kane is the 11. Caleb Romero is the 6. Hunter Bolin is the 7. Travis Whitlake is the 10. Malchewski is the 15. Hidley is the 2. GT, I think you want to lose your mind here, so I don't know if it's your turn to go first, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can, and once again, kudos to Marcus Coleman in that match.
All right, he's frozen. Go ahead, Mark.
I think, David, actually, to be honest with you, I know Penn State's the best kid in the country. I mean, I don't think many people disagree with that. But I understand why they seeded it the way they did.
You do?
Yes, the All-Star meet doesn't count. Keckheisen beat Coleman. Coleman beat
Brooks.
Who? Brooks. So it's going to – and then Hidley beat Keckheisen once and lost once. That's the only reason it's seeded the way it is. They stuck to their guns. The All-Star meet did not count. And that's exactly why it's seeded like this. It's a goofy, yeah, because everybody in the world knows Brooks is the best kid at 184. But the seeding, the criteria is what it is. So you kind of got to go with the way it is. Is it going to hurt Brooks?
That's actually an interesting point. So Keckheisen has a common opponent over Brooks, and he has head-to-head over Hidley, and that he won the second one. And anybody's been a coaches meeting. If you beat me and I beat you, whoever wins the second one has the criteria.
Yes.
So maybe they didn't get it wrong, but it's certainly surprising, right?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe not surprising if you're like a guy like you, but to the general public, pretty surprising. Okay. GT's having computer issues. So he'll log back in if he can. I think Aaron Brooks got a really nice path to Hidley. I mean, like.
Doesn't matter where he's at. He's going to have a good path no matter where. He's just that good, David.
Yeah. Munoz Coleman's an interesting quarter. So All right, 197. So this is a weight that we knew would be chaos. The only thing we knew for sure is Bonacorsi was going to get the 1. Okay.
Yep.
Which he did. So we'll just go from top to bottom. Amos Pence, 17-16. Max Dean, your defending national champion, gets the 9. And his reward for that is he gets Silas Allred, who's the 8, who just beat him in the Big Ten finals. Michael Beard is the 5. Zach Bronigal is the 12. Younger Bastida, who is a really interesting 13. Ethan Laird is the 4. Rocky Elam is the 3. Jacob Warner, who he wrestled in the All-Star meet, is the 14. Jackson Smith, who wrestled really well at Big Tens, is the 11. Isaac Trumbull, the ACC runner-up, is the 6. Tanner Sloan, the 1 seed in the Big 12, who took second, is the 7. Jacob Cardenas, who upset Beard at the EIWAs, is the 10. Serber, who has the only win over Elam, is the 15. Bernie Truax is the 2. Mark, go ahead.
This is nuts. I mean, this is absolutely the goofiest thing I've seen in a long time.
Nuts wrong?
Isaac Trumbull 6 over a returning national champ. I just struggle with it. And I know Trumbull's good. I know he's dangerous, but you know, I would have put Sloan at 6 over Trumbull. He's only had 2 losses. One of them was to Rocky Elam.
So let's start with Truax, okay? Truax is 13-1, but he got pinned by Trumbull, okay?
Okay.
But he's beaten Jackson Smith, Michael Beard. That's it. Tanner Harvey.
Okay.
He won the conference.
Yep.
But he beat Nick Stemmet 7-6 in the finals.
Okay. I think the whole bracket's kind of goofy.
I mean, that's where you got to start, right? Like, you can't deny that Nino's the 1, right?
No, I have no problems with Nino being number 1.
Okay. So
that top half of the bracket is just nasty. I mean, you got Laird who beat Jesus. I mean, you got Bronigal who's had a really, really good year. You got, I mean, Beard's had a good year. You got Allred, who as of late is probably one of the best kids in the country at 97. You got Dean and you got Bastida, who to me is one of the scarier guys in this weight bracket, as good as he is on his feet. Had a terrible Big 12. I don't know what happened. Iowa State just did not wrestle the way I thought they might there. But, I mean, that's just nasty up there. I would not want to be on the top half. I think anybody on the bottom half should be happy as hell that they're there, David.
Until they lose and they cross over into the top half.
That's going to somebody's going to cross over into that nightmare. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, Laird Bastida as the 4-13, Bronigal Beard as the 12-5, Allred Dean as the 8-9 are just unbelievably, tough matchups.
Yep.
And Jackson Smith Trumbull's really interesting, the 11-6.
Yeah.
Okay. 285. Okay. I had somebody tell me before this came out that Wyatt Henderson was going to be the 2 and Colton Schultz was going to be the 3. And I told that guy he had lost his mind. There's no way Colton Schultz could be the 3 because he lost to Lucas Davison. So he actually got seated ahead of Davison. We'll get through this. Paris is the 1. Orndorff, 16. Lucas Davison, 9. Sam Schuyler, 8. Colton Schultz, 5. Colton McKiernan, 12. Tyrell Gordon, 13. Tony Cassiope, 4. Kirk Fleet, 3. Neville's, 14. Hilger, 11. Slavikowski, 6. Owen Triefin's the 7. Zach Elam is the 10. Grady Grease, I think I'm pronouncing that right, is the 15. Wyatt Hendrickson is the 2. Go ahead, Mark.
Where do you start, David? Conference champs, they must give that a lot of credit. I know Wyatt Hendrickson's a talented young man, built like a tree stump, does all kinds of things, wrestles like a 125-pounder at times. And it doesn't seem to get him in trouble. I don't, I think Greg should have been number 3 or number 2, but they're on the same half of the bracket. I think Cassiope should have been 3, but I don't mind seeing him at 4. I understand.
Should have been 3 over, not over Kirkfleet. You're saying
No.
should have been Kirk 2, Cass 3, Hendrickson 4.
Yes.
Okay. Just making sure people understand.
And I have no problems with that. I think Cassiope at the 4 seed is probably as good a draw as he's going to get because he struggles with, actually Kirkfleet to me is probably the hardest guy for him to wrestle because he did wrestle, the number 1 seed very close in the duel. He had to come back to do that, but he was able to do that. And him and Colton Schultz has kind of they have a history with each other. So I have problems more with the 6 and the 7 ranked guys when some of these other guys have had really good years, and I think they're just better wrestlers. Should have probably been down there.
I personally think the top half's really tough when you got Paris is the 1, Lucas Davison, who's an All-American, is the 9, Colton Schultz, who's a returning finalist to an Olympic champion, is the 5, and Cassiope, who's a perennial All-American, is the 4. I'm not saying I just think those are, that's a tough draw. Like Skylar Lucas Davidson's an interesting match, and Cassiope wrestles Colton Schultz really well, as you've talked about. So,
yep.
Okay. So the final team rankings are, this is interesting let me do this and stop sharing and then share a tab. Look at this real quick and then we'll get out of here. By the way, it's Fantasy Wrestling Week. Go to fantasygrade.com. They got a gazillion contests over there. Okay, Penn State, 100. I'm rounding 106. Iowa, 73. Nebraska, 65. Cornell, 64. Missouri, 59. Iowa State, 56. No, there's a little bit of a drop on North Carolina, 49. Ohio State, 46. VTech, 42. ASU, 41. Michigan, 40. Those are your top 11.
Yep.
So super interesting. Yeah, Iowa actually got bumped in the seeds because Real Woods went from a 2 to a 1. Penn State had Brooks drop from a 1 to a 3. Kirkfleet, I think, was a 2 and dropped to a 3.
Yep.
And Max, they got a bump with Levi Haynes for sure.
Yep. Max took that bump away.
Yeah,
in the number 9.
And we're not saying any of these seeds are right or wrong. I'm just saying, in terms of how their points got redistributed. Yeah. I mean, Penn State's got a number 1 at 57 and number 2. I'm sorry, number 1 at 33 and number 2 at 57 and number 6 at 41. Let me start over in order. 33 is a 1, 41 is a 6, 57 is a 2, 74 is a 1, 84 is a 3, 97 is a 9, and
heavyweight's a 3.
Yeah. So, and Max Dean might be the most likely 9 to place in the tournament.
And the green is what they moved up from where they previously were, David?
Yeah, you see, NC State moved from 9 to 7. BTech dropped from 6 to 9. Arizona State moved from 12 to 10. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Arizona State probably, and we talked about this off air. It's kind of the big surprise to me because they only qualified 5 kids for the national tournament, and we would have never saw that happen.
Right.
And I know they had some injuries, but I thought maybe 1 or 2 of those guys might get wild carded in, and they didn't get anybody wild carded in. So
they had 3 pretty bad injuries. So Norfleet has been banged up all year. He didn't get through, although points wise, he's probably a 1 or 2 point guy, which bumps him up 1 spot. Jesse Vasquez is another guy that got hurt, would have bumped him up. Yasagiri wrestled, but lost to Cleveland Belton in the finals, so he didn't get through. And then the big one's obviously Teamer. And even if you rank Teamer 5th, that gives him 10 points, and that bumps him up to 7th behind Iowa State.
Well, am I wrong? Wasn't 84 ranked fairly decent most of the year?
Montalvo?
Yes.
We can look. I mean, I don't think he was.
I thought he was in the top 30 for sure.
So he was between 16th and 24th all year.
Okay, so well, you would think a 16th ranked kid in the country would be at the national tournament.
Well, he didn't wrestle well at the Pac-12s.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was kind of shocking that they only got 5 in. I thought maybe they'd get 6 or 7 in. So
yeah, I get all that, but I'm just saying, like, if you don't win, you don't win. That's just how the world goes, right?
Yep.
And it is what it is. Like, you got to figure out a way to get it done. And the other thing is, like, I talked to somebody who's part of that program and like, well, this, and this. And I'm like, well, okay, but if you have a guy that's most likely going to go 0-2, 1-2, or 2-2, unless he's the biggest, unless he's Tanner Cook, it doesn't change a whole lot.
yeah,
Like, you got to get the guys that are going to medal. I mean, that's the difference.
yep. Agreed.
And Montalvo's never placed. Norfleet's never placed. Vasquez never placed. Not saying they can't. Not saying they won't. Norfleet's done. But, you know, it's not like, I'm not going to even put it out there, but like, hey, our third place guy from a year ago, like Brayton Lee. Brayton Lee's not in the tournament.
Agreed.
I mean, I had picked Minnesota in the preseason to finish in the top 4. Excuse me. But I picked it based on, I thought Gable was coming back and I thought Brayton Lee would be good.
Yep.
You know, and they have 25 points. If you add Gable, they jump all the way up to 8th. Okay. Yep. And then if you say Brayton Lee is 4th or 5th, they jump up to 3rd.
Yeah.
So I mean, clearly I'm wrong. Okay. You know, but my logic for them, I don't think is wrong. So
it should be fun to play with these. I hope the listeners get into Fantasy Grade, enter some of the contests. It's a lot of fun. And
so there's an online
live auction on Wednesday night.
Next Wednesday night, live auction in Tulsa. Go on the site, get signed up. There's 9 spots left. The online contest, I think it's big prize for first place. There's a charity contest where you can play and win prizes, and a portion of your money goes to whichever charity you pick. So a bunch of different ways to play. And then, you know, like there's like state contests like you and me playing the Missouri and Iowa ones, I think. So It just makes the tournament more fun to watch, you know, especially if you're a fan of a team that doesn't have, you know, 10 hammers there. So for GT, for Mark, I'm David. See y'all next week.